Thank you, and welcome to this session, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lovely honor to be speaking with Amish and Bhavna. They're such talented individuals. Their books you would have read. Amish, of course, is like such a well-known, such a renowned author, and most loved. His books are something that I think transcend generations. Students love his style of writing. My parents loved reading him. My in-laws, my children, everybody loves reading you. And this book, I would urge all of you to buy this book because it's very much an easy read. It's something that you can read over the weekend. And what I like about it, which I've spoken to you before, initially it was difficult for me because I'm so used to reading a certain style from you. So when I read this book, it was a little jarring in the first one, if you allow me to say that, because I was like, so many voices, and it's not a linear style. One topic is discussed with so many voices. And then as you explained that's how we all have our conversation. Some of the actors that I've interviewed from the film industry, they say the same thing. They said, when we act, it's not like, आपका नाम क्या है? मेरा नाम ये है. फिर आप कहाँ गए थे? फिर आपने क्या किया? We don't talk like that, right? In a room when we discuss politics or religion, there are multiple views. And you explained to me when I was interviewing you regarding this book that's how it is. But let's speak with the audience here and let's get to why you wrote this book and why you chose to write this book in this particular manner. Let's begin with Bhavna ji.
Call me Bhavna Smita. Namaskar, Kodikod. It's delightful to be here. I have visited almost every state in India except for 3. I had till today. And the 3 states were Mizoram, Bihar, and will you believe it, Kerala? This is my visit to Kerala. It is very, very special, my first visit. Bihar and Mizoram are still on the list, bucket list. As for your question, Smita, Murti Puja, idol worshipping, has been a controversial word for millennia now, unfortunately. At best, it is viewed as silly. At worst, it is shaitani, it is devil worshipping. Amish and I have grown up in a traditional Murti Puja ambience from our birth. And once we decided to write books together on Adharm, Hinduism, Murti Puja was the obvious thing to do. As for conversations, we based it on the old Socratic dialogues as well as our ancient Upanishads that are written as conversations, which is a very useful technique to get in multiple points of view and even antithetical points of view. Disagreements, we have Anirvan the skeptic who comes up with all the skeptic observations from a place of respect and from the heart. And the various characters have tried to find an answer and come to some sort of a balanced middle ground regarding Murti Puja. We've had a lot of fun writing this, Amish and I, and we hope you enjoy reading it.
Amishi, I want to ask you this question, which is, being a journalist, I can't resist asking this question, which is very pertinent today. Your book talks about idols and idol worship and how it's relevant, and it's been relevant over the ages. But today, the Pran Pratishtha issue has come up again, and the Congress party has said that what is happening in Ayodhya is against Hinduism, is against what we believe in, what the scriptures tell us, because you cannot do a Pran Pratishtha on an idol in an incomplete temple. And they are saying that what is happening is paap, it's a sin. That is what today's spokesperson has said. I'm asking you this in light of the book which talks about the importance of idol worship in our tradition, in our culture. So tell me what is wrong with what is happening, if it is wrong at all, about this Pran Pratishtha.
Okay. Um, Jumping straight into something controversial. The Look, the way it is in Hinduism, in fact, in all the dharmic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, um, you can have multiple different approaches. There isn't just one approach that you have to follow, otherwise, you'll go to hell for eternity. There isn't a concept like that. How many of you have been to Sabrimala ji? Show of hands. Yeah? Now, I'm sure you're aware the Sabrimala ji, Lord Ayyappa, is there as a brahmacharya, in his brahmacharya, as a bachelor. That's why, women of menstruating age don't go there. That's a logic behind it. But all those who've been to Sabrimala ji, are there other Lord Ayyappa temples where he's not there as a brahmacharya? Answer, anyone? Correct? Yeah? So then the question arises, then which is the correct one? Right? And that is the tradition in the Indian way. This temple, the Sabrimala ji, has this tradition. Another Lord Ayyappa temple has another tradition. Lord Ram temples, for example. How many of you have been to Orcha in Madhya Pradesh? Anyone? No? Okay, those of you who haven't, please do go. It's a beautiful place. Okay? And there is a temple out there where Lord Ram is worshipped as a king, which is actually as a real king on a throne. And this is quite rare in temples across, which is very different from how Lord Ram is worshipped in most traditional temples, where there's a Ram Darbar, where there's Lord Ram, Lord Lakshman, Sita Ma, and Hanumanji. There are temples in Ayodhya where he is there with Lord Bharat. It's a different way. Anyone knows how the Vigraha is in the Ram Janmabhoomi temple? It's going to be put up, the Murti. What will it be like? Does anyone want to take a guess? Pop quiz? Because it's yes, please. You can scream your answer. Okay. So, it's Ram Lalla, which literally is Lord Ram as a child. So, I mean, none of us have seen the Murti, of course. It will be put up. But I suspect it will be Lord Ram as a child out there. Right?
So I've seen the Ram Lalla, the original one, which is very small.
As a child. So every temple can have its own tradition. That is the traditional Hindu way. So that's one aspect. Every temple can have its own tradition. The second thing is our grandfather was actually a Pandit in Kashi, in Varanasi. He was a teacher at Banaras Hindu University and was also a Pandit. He himself did Pran Pratishtha pujas. And he was a Pandit at Vishwanathji. What we learned from him, how in ancient times, how the three main pujas that would happen, at least that's what we learned from him, in the building of a temple. Remember, in ancient times, the temple construction would take decades, right? I don't know how many of you have been to Brihadeshwara. Anyone's been to Brihadeshwara temple? Yeah? How long did it take to get built? Any idea? Some 3-4 decades. It's a massive temple. Okay, it would take that long, right? Now, how the 3 stages that, because if it's 3-4 decades, then what do you do for those 3-4 decades? The architect, like the Kailash Mahadev temple in Maharashtra, was built over 100 years. So the architect who designed it knew he wouldn't be alive when the temple would be completed, right? So what were the pujas done in that stage? So there were actually 3 stages. The first stage is actually the puja at the Garbhagriha itself, which marks out the Garbhagriha. Okay? The second stage is when the Garbhagriha is complete and the Vigraha, the Murti is placed. And then you do the Pran Pratishtha at that time. The temple, its entire complex itself may not be complete. Whoever's been to Brihadeshwara temple, you know it's an entire complex, right? There's one main temple, there are many other smaller temples around. So the entire complex takes decades to be complete. Once the Garbhagriha is complete, you do the pran pratishtha. And then at the third stage, when the entire complex is complete, then you place the Purna Kalasha at the top of the main temple, Shikara, the main temple spire. That is the third stage. So actually, you can do it at all three stages. That's the way it was in ancient times. Very obviously, because temple construction actually took many decades. So I'm assuming the Garbhagriha is complete, right? So at least in the ancient ways, yes. Then the
So
pran
there's no
pratishtha can be
one
done.
way.
From my understanding, what we learned from our grandfather.
So there's no one way of doing a pran pratishtha. There's no one way of doing worship. And there's no one way of who's going to do the puja and who's sitting for the puja. Like it's
Each
not
temple has
necessary.
its own traditions. So there were some temples where it could be the king, some temples where it could be a local Brahmin, some temples where it could be a local, very important person, like the Shilanyas for the Ram Janmabhoomi temple was, from what I am aware, the main first one was actually placed by a Dalit. So you can have various traditions. So each temple can have its own tradition. That is the Indian way. There are Agama texts, of course, which prescribe how the temple should be built, what the tradition should be. But the prayer process, etc., each temple can have its own traditions. This is what I am aware of.
Because what is happening is, I'm going to bring it back to your book.
And I'm obviously not commenting on the politics and all that.
Sure.
That what has to happen will happen.
Leave that to me. Right. Let me bring it back reluctantly to the topic, which is that, in the book, Bhavna, you write that you don't say that idol worshippers are in any way superior to the non-idol worshippers. But what you do say is that idol worshippers are peaceful people. Now, there's a whole bunch of people, there's a whole bunch of thought that says that no, that's not the case. There have been more wars, more riots which have happened than one can count on the question of idols, whether marauding armies came and beat up the idol worshippers or idol worshippers deciding that this is the way or these are the people who are allowed to do the worshipping in a particular temple. So on the basis of what is available as historical evidence and as scriptures, where do you see this argument?
Human nature itself is complex, and human beings you find peaceful human beings, violent human beings. There are people who are peaceful and violent at different moments in their times. A person can be peaceful as well as violent at different moments. Human nature is what it is. It's the doctrine that becomes something to be given thought to. Religion, Amish and I are working on one of the projects that we work on is, the different kinds of religions that have existed from ancient times, and written from a place of respect and wanting to explore and understand. We would say that there are two basic categorizations of religions. There are religions that concern themselves with the outside world, external life. And then there are those that concern themselves with the inner world and inner exploration. Both politics and imagination are essential human traits. Now, the Abrahamic religions, the eldest child, of course, is Judaism. Then there's Christianity, and the youngest is Islam. These religions, at their onset, were concerned with external life. They were social reform movements, political in their expression, politics in a very good sense. Politics can be a good word also. And then there were the ancient pagan forms of religion, which were symbolic, which were idol worshipping, which had myriad gods and, more importantly, goddesses. Occupied a very central role in pagan forms of worship. Both politics and imagination being essential human traits, the Abrahamic forms invariably found inner explorative symbolic expressions through the times. Judaism found its inner expression through Kabbalahism. You know, Teferet is sun for them and Malkut is moon. Christianity had its Gnostic stream. The Gospels of Paul and Thomas and Mary, not very well-known Gospels, took the Gnostic inner explorative path. And of course, Islam developed Sufi streams, as did the pagan religions find political expression also. Rewinding back, the eldest child among the Abrahamic ways, Judaism, in their doctrine, their doctrine is actually the first 5 books of the Old Testament, what they call the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. I say this with great humility that an unfortunate thing occurred in the Judaic text, which was idol worshipping was declared evil. It's devilish and it must be wiped off the face of the earth. Judaism did not adhere to conversions. They believed in the concept of the chosen people. God chose the Jews as the chosen people, and all else were otherized. The younger 2 siblings, Christianity and Islam, were obedient brothers, to the eldest, and set out, on an idol destructive path historically. Unfortunate, but it's the doctrine that has to be examined, which leads to certain problems, which exist to this day, and lead to, at a subtle level, prejudice and unease with the idol worshipping. So, the heart sometimes gets pulled, of even the idol worshippers, but the head questions, what are we doing? Why are we worshipping stones? Because 2,000 years are a long time, and this prejudice has found its way epigenetically into our cells, almost.
Which is there in our popular culture. You mention it also in the book, that in Bollywood it was Patthar ki puja karke hari mein hari. These words keep coming up about idol worship. Amish, I'm going to ask you about idol worship and back to Pran Pratishtha, because the Prime Minister today, he said that he will begin on an 11-day Anushtan. You mentioned that your grandfather was a priest too. What does an Anushtan mean, firstly? Secondly, is it a sense of like a purification that needs to be done, or you need to be in a state of mind before you undertake something which is so important? Because we are hearing again and again that it's an event which is once in several generations, that after 500 years, the Hindus are going to get a temple for Lord Ram. So if it's a momentous thing, and the Prime Minister said, it seems like I have been chosen by God to represent all Indians on this day to do this Pran Pratishtha. So what is Anushtan? Why is he undertaking this? And is it common practice?
Yeah, essentially it's a way of vrata. I wouldn't know exactly what are the rituals he's following. But it's a way of vrata, it's a way of actually kind of preparing yourself for Pran Pratishtha. And essentially what Pran Pratishtha is it's not a consecration of the idol, because you have to see in the idol worshipping way, it's believed that everything is divine. It's not that, because in the idol rejecting way, the world is actually a product of sin. And you can make something divine. That's what consecration is. Here everything is already divine. So you and I are divine. Everything is, that's what Namaste also translates, I bow to the divine within you. The trees, the mountains, everything is divine. So Pran Pratishtha is not making that stone divine itself.
Which you mentioned in the book, the Hiranyakashyap story,
exactly.
With Prahlad.
So Pran Pratishtha is essentially putting the life force of that Vigraha into that, of that form of the divine into the God. That's what it's it's supposed to mean. Um, so, and I guess you have to kind of prepare yourself for that. Like when you go to Sabrimala Ji, you prepare yourself, to go to that temple in a certain way. Other temples, you may not prepare yourself like that. Like if we have a lot of faith in Sankat Mochan in Varanasi. It's a temple dedicated to Lord Hanuman. And you can just go early in the morning. And it's a way it's like I have Christian friends, the way the Lent, they prepare for Lent, for example, and I didn't see that in the West. They put ash on their forehead, and it is in some ways an anushthan, a vrat, preparing yourself, for those.
So this is
for
there in
those
every
ceremonies.
religion, you're saying?
In India, it's certainly there, at least. I can't say I've seen it because I lived in London for 4.5 years. Yes, you can say that Europe has become almost a post-religious society. But in India, it's there in a way.
Suppose we were to say...
It's a bit like you're preparing yourself for a form of a better word, an engagement with the divine. Okay. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Interesting.
It's like the process of pilgrimage itself is supposed to be a preparation, right? In the ancient way. Okay. In the ancient way, if you're going to a temple far away, to Kedarnath, you weren't supposed to just go in a helicopter and land out there. You were supposed to go through the struggle of that path, because that prepares you for that. That was the ancient tradition. Look, some can say, this is superstition, but in some ways it actually prepares us for that divine journey. Right. And in India, you find it across religious groups. Yeah,
that's true. I'm going to come to some of the stories in your book, which are so interesting, which bust a number of myths. So I'll just give this like a trailer so that people come back and read it. Let me come to the story about Ravan. Since we are in South India, there's this whole idea that Ravan was a Dravidian and who defeated this North Indian upper caste god. Bust this myth. You've done it in the book, now do it here. One of you.
So, how many of you think Ravan was from South India or a Tamilian?
Now that I've said.
None? Okay. What do the ancient texts say about Ravan? Anyone wants to take a pop quiz? Guess. Where was he actually from? The ancient texts. I'm talking about Valmiki Ramayana or texts around that time. Do you know where? Okay, let me make it easier. Where is the oldest temple to Ravan? Oldest. I'll make it easy for you. It's up north, by the way. Guess where? Anyone wants to take a guess? Sorry, what? Anyone taking a guess? Uttar Pradesh. Yeah, you're sort of right. Actually, it's close to Delhi, close to Noida. Okay, the oldest temple to Ravan. Okay, there's this place called Bishrak, which is named after Ravan's father, Rishi Bishrava. Okay, so the most ancient texts say actually he was born out there. Okay,
he was a Brahmin boy from Delhi,
and he was actually a Brahmin. Okay, because his father was a Brahmin and his mother was a royal princess, a Rakshasi royal princess. So the oldest texts say actually he was born close to Noida. He was a Brahmin boy. Lanka was actually ruled by a king called Kuber. Who all have heard of Kuber? What is Kuber? He is the Lord of Wealth, right? Yeah, Kuber was the god of wealth. So Lanka was actually ruled by Kuber. Ravan came all the way down from Delhi to Lanka, deposed Kuber, and then became the king of Lanka. So Ravan was actually a Delhi boy, a Delhi upper caste Brahmin boy. And as I always joke, hence the anger management issues.
Right. Interesting. Now that we're talking about anger, let me get to this. There's this one quote which I love, which I had made a note of it when I read it. Bhavna, I want to take this because whenever I look at you, you're always so calm. So I've just wondered, how come you don't get flustered? Like when you reach the airport and your bags haven't reached, do you get flustered at all? I've never seen you flustered. So there's this quote from the book and it says, some people are miserable regardless of circumstances. Others have life hitting them relentlessly with pain, and yet they seem in control. We've always seen these kind of people, right, in our lives, who always hassle. Whether whether they're in the school or college, your plane hasn't reached there, your train hasn't come, your bus hasn't come, they're always agitated. And there's always reason to be agitated. And sometimes, I used to be one of those. I think what taught me to be calmer person is when I was stuck in a hospital. And I think in this book, a similar kind of situation happens where they have nowhere to go. They can't do anything about it. They're just stuck in a hospital in a waiting room. So that just teaches you circumstances, I guess, where you just have to come to terms with the fact that you just have to be calm. And when you are calm, somewhere you search for the spiritual side in you. Because you can't do the other stuff. Of course, now everybody has a phone. So I guess you can look at Instagram Reels. But otherwise, the search for within happens at this time. Did it happen with you, Bhavna?
How many of you have seen the serial Suits, Harvey Specter? So Harvey Specter's famous secretary, Donna, had said that, I remembered this dialogue of hers very, very clearly, that anger is a cover emotion. It's like the papdi, on top of a wound. Underneath anger, there's always some other emotion. It could be fear, it could be desire, it could be sadness, it could be grief. Anger is always a cover emotion. It needs self-reflection. I had anger management issues as well in my youth and in my early adulthood. I was a very angry person. My husband fell ill in 2016 and early 2016, and I lost him in May 2018. My anger disappeared. I guess the papdi came away, and what seeped out was my grief. I fell apart as a human being. And experientially, I understood what Donna meant. I don't get angry now. We know what post-traumatic stress disorder is, but Nissim Taleb talks about post-traumatic growth. Trauma can sometimes be an opportunity for growth, and you find you're a transformed human being often. And oftentimes what really disappears is the anger.
True. Amish, you've written books on, that's wonderful. I just love the way you reach out to your Didi, as you call her. You're such a lovely support structure for each other. I wish all siblings would find that. You know what happens with siblings is that in childhood you're close, you play with each other. As you grow older and dunyadari comes in, one forgets the linkages. But the two of you not just collaborate in writing, but you are a good foil for each other's problems, support structure. How do you keep this, if you can talk about it? How do you keep up with it?
The credit, and I'm sure Didi would agree, I don't care if it sounds traditional, the credit goes to our mother. Our father taught us, many wonderful things, the habit of reading, habit of debating. But your characters formed by your mother. And Ma was, there were four of us siblings, and she brought us up. She'd actually read the Chanakya Niti when she was young, and she actually implemented that on the four of us. And among the things that she did was, when we were young, till age 5, she would, to the best of her ability, she had her problems as well. We had a lot of, we weren't that well off, but drowned us with love in the first 5 years. Her entire thing was the mother should be available all the time, so that the child never feels insecure, never feels alone. And she was that way with us. Then from age 5 to age 15, the mother should be a strict disciplinarian. And she was that way with us. Really, really strict. We had to eat whatever was on the table, no nakaras, sleeping at this time, waking up at this time. We were expected to, and because they were making a lot of sacrifices for our education, we were expected to do well. It wasn't like a request, you have to do this, because your father and I are making all these sacrifices. She sent us to schools and she used to write long letters, to us, and full philosophical discussions in them. And I remember we were in boarding school, and one of the things that runs, I don't know how many of you were in boarding schools? Anyone studied in a boarding school? Like, and talk about the old days when there was no email, there was nothing, and once a week you'd get the mail, okay? And the children who didn't get letters from their parents, we could see it on their faces. And the children who did, we got a letter every week, and thick letters, right? You'd feel that sense of pride. Arey, my mother has not forgotten me. And she'd write long letters, philosophies, quoting Ramayana, quoting Mahabharata. Her entire thing was, even if it's flying over your head right now, it'll go somewhere in the back of your mind. And the last thing that she did, which was so critical for all four of us, that she didn't try and, her entire thing was, you have to be prepared for the world as it is, not as you hope it will be. Okay? And she said, the world is tough. Why will people make it easy for you? Life is supposed to be tough. You're supposed to face struggles. You're supposed to face grief. That's the nature of life. Who amongst us doesn't suffer, right? He said, what you have to do is be tough enough to handle it. And the greatest source of toughness is when you have a band that is with you no matter what. So the four of us weren't allowed to fight with each other. I swear I kid you not. We were not allowed to fight with each other. And Ma used to keep at us like a hawk on that. If we'd start fighting, she used to tell us to actually stand next to each other and keep kissing each other on the cheeks. Okay, up to a count of 100. We would start laughing after some time, right? But we were not allowed. And her entire thing was, the four of you have to stick together no matter what. And if you do that, whatever life throws at you, you can handle it. And actually, we passed through a very difficult phase emotionally in the last 7-8 years. But because the four of us are so close, and we'll die for each other without a second thought, right? That gives you, this psychologist, shrinks, all this Western nonsense, none of it works, okay? Remember, a psychologist makes money out of wanting you to come back again and again every month. So they don't think about it. Their selfish interest is not in solving your problem. It's to get you to come back and pay again and again and again, right? I'm not saying there's some giant conspiracy. Think where the selfish interest lies. Yeah. But if you have your family, which is completely close-knit and tight, you can handle anything. And seriously, we are the living proof of that.
For any of you who think, why is she asking questions on family? The thing is that the book is like that. It's not just an anodyne essay on what idols mean to individuals or families or groups. There's relationships involved. There are complications in relationships, subtle differences which are expressed in conversations. And I think that's the hallmark of how you write, even in your Shiva trilogy. When you write about the stories that you tell, it's very relatable. The gods and goddesses seem like Aam Aadmi. They sound like us. But let me get on to, I sound like a fangirl now. So there's this quote I have. It says, harmony does not imply sameness. It cannot be achieved by becoming clones of one another or aping each other or even subordinating oneself to someone. Last question before I hand over to the audience. There's this whole talk about, that India is becoming less tolerant. We are less tolerant to opinions and ideas. We don't listen enough. We shout down each other. In fact, you have an entire conversation in the book about the importance of listening to reduce the noise in the head, as you say, of the other person. And so are we heading to that pushing a viewpoint down everybody's throat, that there has to be a oneness, and oneness at the cost of harmony? Are these in conflict with each other?
Okay. Um, I would largely, this is a global problem, not just an Indian problem today. Uh, Hi. Our friend here, Monica. Everybody give her a hand. She writes beautiful books on finance and money. Everyone should read those books, especially women. Coming back to harmony and disharmony. I think it's a global problem, largely attributed to the birth of social media. Sophocles had said, not much happens in human life, not much grandness happens in human life without it being accompanied by a curse. Social media has revolutionized our lives. It has brought many families and people and innovations and human endeavors together, but it has caused a lot of disruption. And this is at an algorithmic level. Social media giants themselves have said that recommendation algorithms nudge you towards your rabbit hole of opinion, and persuasive algorithms keep you in that rabbit hole wherein you start imagining the entire world thinks like me. And in real life, when you encounter a person who doesn't think like you, you're taken aback, and you know that fight-flight response is brought to the fore. Douglas Murray, in his book Madness of Crowds, wrote something very interesting that I've never really been able to forget. A lady, a feminist once, tweeted, all men are must be killed. Men must be killed. Men are evil. And the tweet went viral. Douglas Murray happened to meet this person at a conference, and he said, why would you write such a tweet? She said, oh, you know, all I wanted to really say is I wish life was a little better for women. But would that have gone viral? Just like in a room full of raucous adults, if you want to be heard, you need to scream. This is the social media version of screaming. You scream in order to be heard. And it causes polarization, it causes intolerance. I do not think human beings have become intolerant. I think social media is a very useful, very powerful, very wonderful new tool for humanity. And we have to learn to wrap our heads and hearts around it and evolve to our next level.
Are you on social media, Amish? I mean, no.
I am. I can't say I'm very active on it. My publisher's social media agency keeps getting after me to post personal pictures and all that, which I don't like doing.
But the book was born out of a comment which was during a literary festival like this. Somebody said something which
about Murti Puja.
Murti Puja, which so tell us about that. What happened that day?
So there was a kid, very obviously a college-going kid. Most of my readers are the youth. Many of the people here are youthful as well, either in reality or perhaps in mind. And at this Lit Fest, a kid got up and said that, Amish, I love your books. I'm a very proud Hindu. But obviously, I'm not an idol worshipper. And I said, what's wrong with being an idol worshipper? No, obviously, that's not God, you know. And I didn't want to embarrass him in front of his friends. But that kind of comment remained with me. So I let him get on to his main question. But I think this thing needs to be answered, that why is it that even those who are from idol worshipping cultures have this diffidence about it, that somehow it's wrong, when actually it's not. I mean, those who don't worship idols have every right to.
And you don't believe that cancel culture, right? That I don't want to talk to this person because he's a non-idol worshipper.
No, of course not. And that's not the Indian way in any case. In the dharmic religions, for example, you can be an atheist and still be a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Jain. You can be a non-idol worshipper and still be a dharmic.
So how is an
Only an
atheist-
Indian Muslim could have written these beautiful lines. या तो मस्जिद में शराब पीने दे साकी या ऐसी जगह बता जहाँ खुदा ना हो. So I don't think it's just a dharmic thing. It's Indian Islam, Indian Christianity is also deeply liberal. I won't comment on Islam, Christianity in other countries, but in India it's deeply liberal. So we are open to different points of view. That's what liberalism means, I think. Liberalism is not the Western concept of liberalism that you have to accept there are 76 genders and only then there's liberalism. I, for example, don't think there are 76 genders. I respect everyone's right to find their own path. But for me, liberalism is actually respecting different points of view, which is the Indian way. And that, to add to what Didi said, I would suggest that on social media as well. For every person that you follow, try to follow someone with the exact opposite point of view. Okay, I try and do that. What that does is it centers you. Because the truth is usually in the center. Is usually in that ideal mean. It's not on either extreme. And one of the things with this jumping in binaries is you swing on one extreme, then you swing on the other extreme, like, you know, the conversation on men-women equality in the West has jumped to, you know, Western feminism started meaning hating all men, which is stupid. And now I've lived in London for 4.5 years, one can see the reaction to it. It's swinging to the other extreme, which is hating all women. Men hating all women. And if all you have is men and women hating each other completely, society collapses. You know, is this really what we want? You need to find that center ground, which is the uniquely Indian way in any case.
Yeah, reduce the toxicity in social media as well as our lives. I'm going to throw it open to the audience. Any questions that you have? Please keep the questions short. Any questions?
Hopefully there's a mic going
The gentleman here with the mask.
So good afternoon, sir, and I'm a big fan of your work. Now there was Shiva trilogy, there was Sri Ramchandra series. When and if there will be a Mahabharata series? That's what
I'll work on that too. I do have an idea in my mind, but I'll work on that too. And thank you so much for your compliments. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. God
You're
bless
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Smita ji, thank you very much to meet you here. And respected authors, I'm sorry to my question not related to your book, something small related to politically. I'm working with many of North Indian and other state people. Those Hindus are in their blood, their religion has rooted in their blood. But in Kerala, I born as a Hindu, but I never feel the religion not feeling in my blood. The way North Indian people are feeling. Even those who are living in Karnataka, they have experienced like a Tipu Sultan life. Still, they have the religion in their blood. But in particularly in Kerala Hindus, they don't feel the religion in their blood. Why maybe?
You know, I think for a few decades, this was a phenomenon across India. Maybe our education system was such that it was cutting people off from our roots. And the dominant public culture was also such, perhaps. So our education system is still a very colonial education system. Things as basic as the number of seasons, you know, in a year. We are taught that the year has 4 seasons, you know, summer, autumn, winter, spring. When actually India actually has 6 seasons. That's a reality of India. There are many things which perhaps our education system actually did. But there is a change in tide. And I would like to put this thought across. I lived in the West, in the UK. And they have taken this philosophy to an extreme that, you know, the nihilistic philosophy, that you remove everything that binds a society together. All traditions, religion, nationalism. If you remove it all, I've seen it in Europe, society itself starts collapsing. Because there's nothing binding a society together. So this is something perhaps that we Indians should look to the West and learn not to do. It's not a good idea to destroy all traditions, right? And whatever our traditions are, it could be Hinduism, could be Indian Islam, could be Indian Christianity, could be nationalism, whatever that binds a society together. Family values. Now that doesn't mean that where traditions need to be updated, they should not be updated. Of course they should, you know. So for example, if there are traditions, say, say there's some say that Muslim girls are not being allowed to study, okay, then that tradition should be challenged by data of Indian madrasas before the British came, where girls did study, you know. Or if in Hindu temples certain castes aren't allowed, that should be challenged again by showing Indian scriptures from the past which allowed people from all castes to come in. So wherever traditions need to be challenged, they should be. We should reform. But we must, learning from the West, seriously, we need to learn to keep our traditions alive. I'm telling you, in London I saw, in the US, there's a pride in burning their flag, which I never really understood. If you don't love your own country, then society starts falling apart. There are churches in London, in UK, which have been converted into discotheques. You know, I'm not a Christian. I went to a place like this, and I'm not a Christian, and I actually felt upset. Ki, yaar, ye kya kar rahe ho? Okay. I mean, it's like if there's a stained glass picture of Jesus Christ out there, even if I'm a Hindu, I would think there are some things that should not be done in front of that glass, you know. And this is happening in the UK. And of course, I left that place. But the point I'm trying to make is when you see this happening, society itself starts dissipating. So we should actually look at the West and realize this is not a good idea. Okay? We must reform traditions where we can. But burning all traditions is not a good idea. We'll land up with societies like the West, which, trust me, is bad for everyone. Children suffer, everyone suffers. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you, but it's my.
He's been
sorry.
wanting to ask
Sorry,
a question.
sorry. I know you look like a Westerner, but that was my reading of the West. I actually felt bad out there. You know? Yeah. It's just I felt society is dissipating. Sorry.
Hello, good evening, sir. I'm so happy to be here, even though I couldn't attend the session from the beginning itself. I'm a great fan of yours. I'm going to research on mythology, basically on Ramayana, and you are my inspiration for that. Your book, Sita the Warrior of Mithila, is my first primary source of research. And I'm not asking any questions. I just need to tell my gratitude. Like, I'm so happy to.
God bless you, Sita Mata ki jai.
Thank you, sir.
And you know, in traditional families, women are very strong. You have to see my sister and my mother.
Good evening, sir. Sir, you have said that you have been living in UK. So I would like to know the approach of the Westerners towards the Hindu religion, especially in the context of the UK Prime Minister being a man who follows the Hinduism.
Actually, my reading of the West is many of them. Look, I'll be honest, India is not that top of mind out there. I know many think that they think badly of us, but that's more because of articles in New York Times or Guardian or something. We are not really that top of mind, considering how big a country we are, and considering that we are the 5th largest economy on earth. But those who do think of us, on average, I've seen they actually think positively of us. Perhaps because of yoga, perhaps because of Mahatma Gandhi. See, when they think of India, among the first things that Westerners, at least from what I've seen, they think of yoga, they think of Mahatma Gandhi, they think of Gautam Buddha, all of which are very positive, thoughts in their mind. To your point, sir, I found in the West, there are moves to teach yoga. They do teach yoga in schools. It's in the UK. It's easier to teach yoga in British schools than in Indian schools, you know. So there's actually, on average, they tend to look at India positively. That doesn't mean everything about India is positive. And to be honest, let's be honest, there are many things about India that we should improve, you know. But they tend to look at us positively. I don't think, as India rises, I don't think the West will be a headwind for us. They may not necessarily be a tailwind, but they won't be a headwind. I don't think they'll be opposing us.
Good evening. I don't know how you are going to respond my question, but I have a question. I think, is it okay I can ask question? Because in your speech, you said that Indian Muslims are liberal, unlike, that other parts of the world. But I want to ask you about, that in India, there is a nationalism. And as per you, Indian Muslims are liberal. Then who is a villain?
In the Indian way, okay, tell me this, in Sanskrit, what is the word for quote unquote villain? Do you know what the word is? I'm using this because language tells you something about the culture from which that language emerged. Like in Vedic Sanskrit, there's no translation for the English word blasphemy. We didn't have the concept, so we didn't have a word for it. What's the word for a villain? Do you know? Khalnayak. Okay. Nayak is the hero. Khalnayak is the quote-unquote villain. But it does not exactly translate as the English word villain. He's not some evil guy. Adharma also doesn't translate as evil. Nayak is the one who moves the story forward. Khalnayak is the one who moves the story in a different direction. That's it. That's all that it means. Okay. We didn't have a concept of villain. Okay. Why do I say Indian Muslims are liberal? Don't go by what you see. I'm really sorry, but don't go by what you see in the media. Okay. On TV channels, there are gladiatorial matches set up every night. Okay. And they want people who shout and scream. Okay. Because that's what gets TRPs. For most of us Indians, let's be honest, many of those channels aren't really news. It's entertainment. Okay. They're shouting at each other. Some of them are so loud, you turn the TV channel off, you can still hear them. Okay. But the reality is actually beyond that. Not on those TV channels, not on the Twitter feed. Okay. It can be your personal experiences, but since you'd want data, I assume, let me quote data to you. Have you heard of the Pew survey? How many people have heard of the Pew survey, PEW? Yeah? It is the largest, perhaps the most credible survey organizations in the world. Okay. They'd come out with a survey in 2020 of attitudes of different religious groups in India. Similar questions that they asked people across the world. Okay. And sadly, I don't know why it wasn't publicized in India. You can go online and read that survey. Okay. And they asked various questions to different religious groups. They asked Hindus that, are you willing to worship at the worship places of different religions? Okay. Not just at a Hindu temple, but also at a mosque, also at a church, also at a Gurudwara. Guess how many Hindus said yes? Guess. 90%. Okay. Now they asked Muslims and Christians this question. Do you believe that all religions are true? Or do you believe that only your religion is true and all other religions are false and their followers will go to hell? Guess how many said yes? Guess how many Muslims said yes? Guess. I can tell you in many other countries like Pakistan, it was 5%. Okay, and I'm no defender of Pakistan. I'm not some... so Pakistan has real problems. Guess how many Indian Muslims said yes, that all religions are true? 86%. Okay. They asked all religious groups, including Muslims and Christians, do you believe in the concept of dharma and karma? Dharma and karma are actually dharmic concepts, right? They are Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Jain concepts, right? What is dharma? That there is a principle which holds the universe together, right? And what is balanced. And karma is our relation to that dharma, which means we decide what will happen to us. God will not judge us. We decide what will happen to us. Okay. Guess how many Muslims said they believe in the concept of karma and dharma? Guess. Anyone wants to take a guess? Huh? 70%? Go higher. 90, over 90%. More Muslims believed in karma and dharma than Hindus. And Hindus also were 89, 90%. Muslims said 91%. Okay. They asked Sikhs, are you free to practice your religion in your country? 94% said yes. They asked, do you face discrimination? 93% said yes. More Sikhs thought that Hindus face discrimination than Sikhs themselves. This is India. This is the India that I love. Don't go by what you see on TV channel discussions or Twitter discussions. You know, on a per capita basis, India's, I'm sorry I'm giving a long answer because I feel very passionately about this. Okay. On a per capita basis, India is among the least violent nations on earth. Okay. This despite a police force that is undermined, despite a court system that we all know does not work. It takes 30, 40 years for a court to be decided. So why are we less violent? Boston has 10 times the violent crime rate of Bangalore or Mumbai. Why are we less violent? Because the people themselves aren't that violent. I lived for 44 years in India. I never saw an actual mugging in my life. I've traveled to all parts of India. I lived in London for 4.5 years. I personally saw muggings twice. One with knives. Okay, in Mayfair, among the most elite parts in the world, in Hyde Park. Okay, there's a reason why we are not perfect. There are many things that we need to solve. There's a reason why I love India. And I want to put this thought across to you. Okay, there is no villain. We are seeing villains. Let's learn to look at the truth about each other. We're a lovely country. We truly are a lovely country. I am deeply proud to be Indian, not because I was born here, because we are an awesome people. We genuinely are an awesome people. Many things to improve. I'm not denying that. Many things to improve.
On that note, I'm afraid we have to end this session. They say Sandhya Kal is one of the prettiest times of the day. And at this time, you need to feel good about yourself. You need to feel good about your environment. You need to feel good about your family and friends. And nothing better than what Amish said to us and Bhavna said to us today. So I hope you take all this information, all this thoughts with you back home today and mull over it. Do read the book. Do understand that there are various ways of life that Bhavna and Amish have talked in their book, and so much to learn from their books. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
If I may add, this and Dharma are two books that I've written with my Didi. They are very special for me. So do check it out. Idols and Dharma. And yeah, that's it. You want to say something?
Thank you, Kodikod. Lovely being here.